I think we should be getting. Okay, let's see. I think we are live. Yeah, I think we are. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another awesome video for Member Motivation. I'm Jackie Lee, and I have with me my friend today, Tammy Lysher. Thank you, Tammy, for coming and joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jackie.
So I am really excited to have you here today. We ended up meeting through a mutual friend that suggested me to you, and I'm really glad that we got in touch because as I've gotten to know you, I realized that you have a lot of really good information that you bring a lot of your clients and students that I think is going to be beneficial for some of the people here on this YouTube channel and our 55 Steps to the Light Facebook page. Information that people are really going to be able to utilize. Some of this stuff is probably going to resonate with some of our members. And so I'm happy to have you here to share some of this information today. I'll just say as we, when I'm doing these videos and I'm bringing people like you on, it's because we are trying to offer tools and techniques for people when we're going through an ascension process. We're starting to become more self-aware. We're learning the language of the body, which is through sensation. And as we begin doing this, it awakens things that we may have never experienced before and we don't quite know what to do with, right? And so just introducing yourself to people, you call yourself a movement educator. So why don't you go into a little bit of explanation of what that means?
So my definition of a movement educator is I am both a yoga and Pilates instructor, along with I'm trained in the nervous system work. And I think that I really like to, I'm a movement specialist, but I also call myself a functional movement specialist. So people come to me unknowingly, and I don't always say, hi, I'm Tammy and I'm a trauma-informed specialist, but I use modalities to help people with their trauma move through their bodies. So, and it might be in a lot of different ways. So using those techniques as well as breath work. So,
oh yeah, that's fantastic.
So, and I think the piece that I like to use too is that we heal from the inside out, and that we're moving from a disconnect inwardly to a reconnection outwardly. So,
yes, absolutely. And for some people that are brand new to this whole concept, right? Because again, if they've been disconnected and we're trying to bring the reconnection in, what they're finding is that some of the energy that they're dealing with has actually been kind of blocked, or it's been stuck, or they're starting to pull up energy that's been stored. And they're like, oh my gosh, what do I do with this? So what are ways that you would introduce for somebody that's new? What are some techniques that you would pull out in order for people to begin this process?
Well, I guess it depends. I'm just going to give a couple scenarios, but I think the first couple would be just taking 3 big, really deep cleansing breaths, and really almost like cathartic, and actually using like just even a sigh at the end of their breath, or like dancing. And when I say shaking, I'm talking like their arms moving. Yeah, their arms and their hands moving, because it's releasing the energy from their bodies, but moving in a way that feels organically good to the person who is doing it. And it's not, and you're allowing your body to guide you in what needs to happen. And I always like to say, what does my body need from me today? Meaning movement. And the other things, and I know you're yoga trained, but as well, so am I. But a lot of what I do, sound with the voice. So oming is really good. But Dr. Peter Levine uses the sound of the V sound. So instead of doing om, he does boom, and he feels the resonance. Like if you say it, you can feel it vibrating in the back of your throat. And the other thing that is really like, because when you think about our nervous system, and I don't want to go too deep into the nervous system, but it actually has what we call an autonomic nervous system. And so the whole, like your whole face, everything is autonomic, meaning we don't know when we're going to blink. It connects us to our hearing, and it connects us to our speech, and it connects everything. And then you think about what goes on inwardly with us, your heart, your lungs, your liver, everything when it comes to digestion. And so understanding that something as simple as swallowing, so drinking water and swallowing can help also be like, it just connects, and it's like, and it does, it's almost like it's so it down regulates your system, essentially is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So being present. And so when I say be present, I trying to be what I'm going to call being disconnected from technology. And that might be what I'm going to just also say, mindful movement, because meditation is not for everybody, but being mindful and being present in the moment. Like, for example, going for a walk outside in nature without technology. I mean, you might have to take it depending on where you live for safety purposes, or it might be a bike ride, or it might be a run, or it might be, so you're disconnecting from technology, but you're reconnecting with yourself and the outside world around us. And I think when you look around, in most places, the weather is probably pretty conducive right now. And so really tapping into like the grass and the greens. And reconnecting with the earth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's, in my opinion, that's one of the best things that we can do, which is also about movement, right? It's getting outside, connecting with nature, and using the intention to do it. I always tell my students too, I'm like, there's a big difference between just going outside and walking around, and actually with the intention that you're fueling while you're walking around. It's mentally being in that moment and utilizing that. I've been reading an article by, I'm going to botch her name, so I feel bad about this, but Adil Pakuvala. And I used this article a lot when I was teaching yoga, but she was talking about feeling being able to take you into yourself. And I love that quote, because when you do tap into your feeling, that's what's tapping you into whatever this energy is that's stored, which is what you're doing, is you're waking all that up and you're bringing it out into the surface. And another thing she said is to tell your students to watch their breath as they do the poses, for this helps to reduce the forcing behind something and invites the spirit into your body. And it's like, oh, let's come in and let's actually connect. I feel like once you wake up the spirit, then you're actually creating that connection. And so when we're talking about waking up these emotions, sometimes it's unexpected. Like sometimes we have things that come up that we weren't even anticipating coming up. And so if we're dealing with things that are coming up out of the blue, I like you said, the breathing, the shaking, the dancing, those are really good ways to maybe deal with something that pops up that you didn't even. Do you have any other suggestions beyond that? Like once you're really feeling something, what can you do after that? Maybe
I would say it really depends on how much is bubbling to the surface. Journaling, writing, those kinds of things. And I'm just going to caution here, just because so many people are having mental health issues. And if you really truly are feeling like at a loss, seek out a mental health consultant or a counselor, somebody who's trained in it. The other thing too is gentle movement. Sometimes they like yoga or somatic movement. I teach Pilates and yoga, and I will use a combination. But instead of moving faster, like key in and slow your movements down and slow your body down and really feel like if you're, I don't know, let's just say you're on a mat and you're doing like just even laying down and drawing your knees into your chest and rocking from side to side, massaging your lower lumbar spine. Really, truly allow yourself to feel the movement, but let your body be guided by what it needs. And when I say that, people look at me kind of odd, but it's like, if it feels right to stretch with your arms overhead, all the way from your fingertips to your toes, and maybe turn side to side, it really, and when you first few times you do it, you know, and don't be afraid to talk to yourself. And it's like, what do I need? A bath, you know, sitting with just a warm cup of tea, and not necessarily technology, but just sitting with a warm cup of tea and maybe some music to help calm you. And everybody's different. And movement, that's what I use as movement, but that doesn't mean necessarily that that's what everybody needs. You know, how are you drinking enough water? Are you nourishing yourself? Good nourishment, not talking like healthy stuff like fruits and vegetables, and that it's not highly processed and things like that, because it really does make a difference.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
You know, and the other piece that I'm just going to say that I think is important is not self-medicating and not self-numbing, and staying present. And again, it goes back to, and for somebody who, you know, is always really readily distracted, and when you say things come up, and sometimes maybe people are going really, really fast, and so sitting down and sitting still for them is really foreign, and it might be hard for you. So if you just even sit for 5 minutes and be mindful of like what you're going to be doing. So everybody's going to be different. And when you were talking about that bubbling up stuff comes up, and those are things that people they're not even aware of.
And they don't know what to do about it.
Yeah. Or it might be a phrase that somebody says to you and you react to it. And it's like, it's just.
And I think that sometimes what happens, especially in our society now, we're more sitting creatures than we ever were in, 50, 100 years ago. We were more movement based. We were out doing things because we didn't have the technology giving us a reason to sit all day. And so I do believe that you're right, that there are a lot of people that are so used to just sitting that they don't think about the movement as the actual answer or the technique that they need to do something with this energy. Because what happens is this energy is in the body and it can become stagnant. And when it becomes stagnant, it's storing. And then when it's storing, it starts to manifest. And when it's manifesting, that's when we get the symptoms. That's when we start turning into, these symptoms that turn into a dis-ease in the body. And then we start ending up, like you said, self-medicating or self-numbing ourselves because we don't know how to deal with the symptoms. But if we just begin this process, like you're teaching, of this, just move the body and go with the flow and see what the body actually is prompting you to do, then it's going to start waking some of this stuff up. And then as you do, you can continue some of these different tools or working with different practitioners or whatever it might be to start handling what you're actually pulling up. But the first part is to just move.
Yeah. And I think when it's like, if people are continually, the number, probably the biggest indicate, there's a couple things. When people have gone through trauma, autoimmune disorders are number one on the list, followed by, I'm making this a general statement. I'm not saying that it's caused by, but like lung issues and heart issues are so high on the rise right now, but also the health of your, a lot of times they call it gut health. And when you think about gut health, that impacts our whole entire body.
Oh yeah.
It truly does. And I think that I'm not a nutritionist, but I do say that I think that sometimes when you start looking at what you're eating is a reflection of how you're feeling. I don't, yeah. So but the disease part of it and how it can manifest in our bodies. And it might feel like tight and achiness. It might be like a drawn, like, sometimes people say, well, it's just stress in my throat or in my shoulders, but it truly sometimes can go deeper. So,
oh yeah.
And it might show up in different ways. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting too, when you like dive a little bit deeper and you start realizing that some of the energy that's being stored is being stored in one of the chakras that actually relates to what caused the problem. That's fast. That's part of my work that I absolutely love exploring, is going to the source of why the emotion is even there to begin with, or why the energy is actually being stored. Okay, well, let's talk real quick because we are going to start winding this up, but I do want to introduce people to some of the things that you do online, because they might be interested in reaching out or connecting with you. So what else do you offer in order to help people?
So I actually it's called trauma-informed movement. So I do one-on-ones via online, via Zoom. I also have 3 different courses, different kinds of courses on trauma-informed movement, but also really looking at how trauma impacts the body, how trauma impacts us individually. If you're a teacher, I actually have a couple of courses. The first one is called A Beginner's Guide to Demystifying the Trauma-Informed Approach. And then I have a larger course, and that's 10 weeks, and it's looking at how trauma impacts the body, but it's going a little bit deeper, and then connecting it to the movement. Well, what can we do to help clients if you're a Pilates or yoga or a fitness? And honestly, for anybody who individually wants to do this work, it would be easy to do one-on-one with somebody like that, because I actually have a couple clients that I'm doing trauma-informed work with right now, in addition to other things. And then I also I have a studio. I live in Michigan, and so I do work in my studio with clients, and I only see private clients. So, yeah. But they can find me on Instagram at Studio T Pilates, MI, which is for Michigan. I also am on Facebook under Studio T Pilates, but I also have a Facebook page, and it's under Tammy Lysher. And if you find, any of those ways are easy to find to me.
Great. So, and I'll make sure that at the end of the video, in the description for the YouTube, I'll put your information for people to be able to look under the description.
Yeah, I also have a website, and it's studiotpilates.com. And there's information on there more about the trauma-informed work and how I utilize it. So
yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing some of your information with us today, and for everything that you're doing, because you're bringing this about for a lot of people that might be introduced for the very first time, and it's definitely needed. So thank you for being a part.
I am more than willing to answer questions too if people have questions, because it is new, and a lot of times people look at me and say, what are you doing? So, but yeah,
I'm helping the planet.
Yeah, I try. So, all right. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, hang on with me. I will. We're going to say goodbye. Thank you, everybody. And I'll be back with you in just a second. Thanks, everybody. Have a super day.